My video series on all the Bioshock games has finally come to an end, and wow, this last look into Rapture was a lot to digest. Burial at Sea is a 2013 Bioshock Infinite DLC that's developed by Rational Games and published by 2K. The story takes place on the eve of 1958, right before Rapture goes downhill. Booker DeWitt is a private investigator who is tasked by Elizabeth to investigate the disappearance of a little girl named Sally. You'll spend the beginning of the game exploring Rapture at its prime, seeing all its glorious detail. From the beautifully lit underwater skyscrapers to the various stores around the area. I took my time exploring the place, but it didn't take long for the game to throw you into a more familiar version of the city. As for the characters, I can't say much in this episode, other than how cool it was to see Sander Cohen. But I really liked Elizabeth here. She's a hardened woman, and I just loved her femme fatale design. The game itself is a combination of both Bioshock titles. Booker can carry 2 weapons at a time, and he has a regeneration shield just like in Bioshock Infinite. Plasmids are back for combat. They're limited though. 5 are in the game with a new one called Old Man Winter. This'll let you freeze enemies and shatter them, just like Winter Blast from the past Bioshock game. Rails are available for Booker using his air grabber, which functions like the skyhook in Infinite. That reminds me, I got a little confused in my first few fights because of the gameplay similarities. I immediately shot every splicer in the area as if I was playing through the main story of Bioshock Infinite. Don't get me started on the Big Daddy. Burial at Sea is more difficult compared to Infinite, with bullets being harder to come by. Enemies hit way harder too, so I ended up using a more stealthy and careful approach that also saved me ammunition. Elizabeth accompanies you throughout the game and does mostly the same things in Infinite, opening tears to provide you with supplies or assistance. One thing I noticed is that she doesn't throw as much equipment at the player, but I guess it makes sense because having Elizabeth throw things at the player's convenience would defeat the purpose of making supplies more scarce in the game. Episode 1 took me almost 2 hours to finish. It's really short, but I thought it was a great experience. I like being able to play as Booker again, and having Elizabeth as company, even with the different circumstances. The last portion of the game had a great twist too, that left me eager to know what happens next. Episode 1 serves more as an intro due to all the answers and inconsistencies that it added to the story. Luckily, the second episode is where it's all answered, and things get even better. Episode 2 features Elizabeth as the playable character and starts after Episode 1's shocker of an ending. But before I get into that, I just wanted to talk about how much I loved the beginning segment. I think this is the most accurate romanticized vision of Paris that I've ever seen in a game. It was beautiful though, with all the artists, cafes, flowers, birds, and chill people. My favorite is the boy dancing around while holding a baguette. Anyway, Episode 2 shows how Burial at Sea serves as a connection to Bioshock 1 and a departure from Infinite. I was impressed at how polished this episode was, because it felt like an entirely new game. I've said that about Minerva's Den before, which I think is on par in terms of DLC quality, but I won't compare them too much because both games are great in their own way. Elizabeth can't open tears in Episode 2. She'll have to rely on weapons this time, but the options are a bit more limited compared to Episode 1. Stealth still plays a big role here, with Elizabeth knocking out enemies using the sleeping darts on her crossbow, though of course this is only in the beginning. She'll have access to different darts later. Lethal guns can be found too, though you'll have a much better chance of surviving if you take out enemies carefully. Elizabeth can also crawl through vents that can lead to optional areas, or provide an escape route if too many splicers are on you. A few familiar plasmids from previous games are available, including a new one that allows you to turn invisible and see through walls. That one was super useful, because splicers have terrible eyesight. Elizabeth could be right in their line of vision and they wouldn't notice her immediately. I loved how this episode allowed Elizabeth to shine. She was always book smart, but it was interesting to see how she uses her knowledge in Burial at Sea to progress through the story, even though it seemed a little unbelievable at times. Elizabeth's voice actress, Courtney Draper, did an amazing job throughout episode 2. Her performance gave so much to the emotional journey of the game, all the way to the end. I'm still trying to process everything right now because so many things unfolded from the story. I'll have to talk about some of it at least. Skip to this timestamp to avoid spoilers. It was crazy seeing how everything connected, because Infinite was so different from the 2 Bioshock games. I loved seeing everything from the explanation on how Columbia floats in the sky to the link between plasmids and vigors. I never would have thought that the reason why Columbia and Rapture has similar technology is because of Suchong and Fink's collaboration, which literally goes in between different time periods. And possibly different universes? I don't even know. Somehow everything just made sense. I didn't even pay much attention to the Vox Populi stuff in Infinite, yet Burial at Sea provided some twists too. I loved seeing the imprint experiments even though it was so messed up. It was so cool seeing how the process went with the Big Daddy and the Little Sisters. I also love how it gave justice to Songbird. I remember being so upset because he lacked backstory in Infinite, so I was thrilled to find out more about him. And Atlas. Oh god, Atlas. He was a complete jerk, but it didn't come as a surprise. Maybe I'm still blinded by the fake Atlas from Bioshock 1. I wasn't sure what to think of the ending though. I felt really sad, but at the same time, I kinda wanted to see Elizabeth have a slightly happier ending. Yeah, I know. It's going to be as unrealistic as that Paris fantasy. At least she didn't die in vain. So episode 2 took me about 4 to 5 hours to complete. I got a little impatient halfway through the game because I was eager to see how the rest of the story would unfold. I can only imagine how nostalgic longtime fans felt when they played through Burial at Sea for the first time. It's a bittersweet departure to the series, coupled with a lot of brilliant reveals. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you all thought about the video. And with that, I'm done with the series. I don't have to worry about spoilers anymore, so I can read everything I want about the games. Bioshock will remain one of my favorite games when it comes to the world and story. I'll be going for something indie, I guess, next time. So I hope I'll see you in my next video.